What up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith. Welcome back to the Nerdy Narrative. Today, I'll be revisiting an idea that I came up last year, which was a video that was called Books I'm So Thankful to Have Read and Those That Recommended Them to Me. I have a whole new stack of books here that I read based off someone's recommendation since that video that I want to share my love for with you all, as well as those that recommended them to me. Let's get started. It's funny because I'm sitting here looking at these books. I have 3 trilogies that are going to fall on this list that I read in this last year. There would have been a 4th, but one of the books I read last year, so I didn't count it. But the first trilogy that's going to show up here is Luke Arnold's The Fetch Phillips Archive. I am actually not sure if this is an official trilogy or if it's ongoing. I have heard it called a trilogy, but whether it's a trilogy or an ongoing series, I read all 3 of these books this past year. Absolutely loved them. They were recommended to me by my friend Ev. Ev sent me the first 2 books of this series to try. She loved them. She thought I would enjoy them. She wanted me to read them. These 2 sat on my shelves for several months. One of the things that I do for my patrons is every month I spin a wheel. Whoever the wheel chooses, that person gets to pick any book that they want for me to read. So one month it chose my patron Gail, and Gail suggested this series to me because she also had the book. And so I asked Gail if she would like to buddy read The Last Mile of Thunder City with me, and she said yes. We read it, we loved it. And so then the next month I said, hey Gail, do you want to buddy read the second one? And she said yes, and we read it, and we loved it even more. And the very next month when this one came out, I said, hey Gail, do you want to buddy read One Foot in the Bay with me? And she said yes. And so we ended up reading all 3 books together. We loved it. We loved seeing the growth of the author as well as the development of the characters and the storyline, and I hope that there are more. Now, let's talk about the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon for just 1 second. My patron Ev is the one who recommended the series for me. My patron Gail is the one who picked it and moved it up in priority for me to read it. How I met Gail is also because of Ev, which is another trilogy that Ev recommended to me, The Stranger Times by C.K. McDonald, which is also on this list. This urban fantasy series was so good. It had me cracking up. I went right into the second book, and even though the 3rd book doesn't come out until February of next year, I know that I'm going to love it. I've already got it pre-ordered. I actually then started C.K. McDonald's crime series that he writes under his name, Queeve McDonald. It's still funny, but not quite as funny as The Stranger Times. I'm still enjoying it. I'm still working my way through those books. But when I did a review for The Stranger Times, Gail actually saw that review and she picked up those books and she read them and loved them as well. And that's how she became part of the Nerdy Narrative patron family, as well as my very dear friend who we have now read, I don't even know how many buddy reads. We're actually currently in the middle of another one, and I have a feeling that duology is going to be on next year's list. Moving on to yet another trilogy, and I know I haven't read the last book yet. I know I am going to love it, and I know it's going to be a favorite trilogy. And this trilogy was recommended to me by my patron Kate. She had heard about this series, The Risen Kingdoms by Curtis Craddock. So she recommended The Alchemy of Mask and Mirrors to me to see how I would like it so I could tell her about it, see if she would like it. I loved it. I actually thought I was going to DNF this book in chapter 1, but I told myself just get to the end of chapter 1 and then make your decision. What happened at the end of chapter 1 totally hooked me. I could not shut up about this book, and several of my friends have now read it and agree. It's an amazing trilogy. Everything takes place on sky islands with airships. So we have The Alchemy of Mask and Mirrors, followed up by A Labyrinth of Scions and Sorcery, which was even better. I did not think Curtis Craddock could get even better than what he did in the first one. And hopefully very soon I will be finishing out this trilogy with The Last Uncharted Sky. These are gorgeous hardcovers that Kate sent to me. She actually got to meet the author. She got him to sign them all for me. This is such a beautiful series that I will read and reread and reread and reread and be so grateful to Kate for introducing them to me, and then for her to give me a beautiful hardcover copy from my collection that are personalized to me. Add a adequate words of gratitude I cannot find except to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I bet none of you are expecting to see a nonfiction memoir up here, but this is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. If you've ever heard David Goggins on podcasts, interviews, heard him speak publicly, you're a fan. This is his story of his childhood, just how he rose to all of the levels and achievements through pure will and inspiration, and it is an amazing story, though I do recommend the audiobook. At the end of every chapter, David and the narrator, I want to say his name is Andrew. His name is not listed anywhere that I can find on this book, but they annotate the book and talk about it chapter by chapter, which just really adds to the experience. This book, the story of David Goggins, is just absolutely amazing, and it was recommended to me by my husband Chris, and he was like, Leslie, you have to hear this man's story, you just have to hear it. And he was right. This is one that is perpetually in the state of reread for both my husband and I. Just cannot recommend it enough. Oh, chills just thinking about that story. Just absolutely fantastic. Next here in the pile is one of my favorite reads of the year. It's Waking Ursa Minor by Helen Rye Peterson. My friend Rosalie, who is part of my Discord, actually came across this book on Instagram. The author had posted that they were looking for people to read the arc and had posted a blurb about it. Rosalie shared it in Discord because she knew it would be right up several of our alleys. She was right. A bunch of us applied for it. We got approved. We buddy read it together. I don't think any of us gave this one less than 5 stars. The author provided me with an e-arc to read and review, but as you can see, I had to purchase the special hardback edition for my collection because I just love the story. It's one of those beginnings that's just special to me, that no matter how many books are in this series, no matter how good they are, I don't think they'll ever be able to top what this one did for me in the beginning, because it's where I met all of these characters. I learned their story. I met so many different tribes of people. I learned their culture, their traditions. It was just I loved it. Now this next one is no surprise to any of you that have been following the channel for a while. You know my love for Empire of Silence by Christopher Rocchio. Again, this was a patron pick of the month. My patron Lindsay chose this for me, and I'm sensing a pattern here, and I'm betting you all are too. My patrons know my taste very, very well, and they pick 5-star reads. Oh my goodness. This is such a beautiful book. I love the story. The narrator was amazing. I'm really thinking this series is going to end up being my favorite space opera of all time. But so far, Empire of Silence is my book of the year for 2022. There's been some that's come close, but nobody has been able to topple it so far. The next one is book 2 of a trilogy. The Winter Night Trilogy. This was recommended to me by my friend Evie. Well, okay, so also Angela from Literature Science Alliance. I love this book. The reason why book 2 is my favorite and why I'm so glad to have read it, I just love the Russian-inspired folk tale, folklore aspect of it. I later found out that a lot of the characters are pulled from Russian history, folklore, and put into this story. You know, and the author stayed pretty true to their roots and what type of character they were rumored to have been like, but they also put their own spin on it, and it was just absolutely beautiful. And this one, the main character really starts to get a grip on what kind of person they are, their magic, and just the animal companion, I'm sure you can guess, is a horse, and Solove has my heart forever and always. Just absolutely love that book. Speaking of Evie, I'm also giving her credit for Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. I feel so bad for its lower ratings on Goodreads because people read the back of the book and they assume that this is a story about mannequins rampaging around a town, and that's not the case. Stephen Graham Jones is a literary horror author, which means there is a deeper meaning or theme going on here, and I don't want to tell you what that is because it would absolutely spoil the story for you, because most of the fun is trying to figure out what the heck is going on. It's a little creepy, but it's also campy and really hilarious, and I just absolutely loved it. Gosh, and you know what? Evie, third one in a row, Moses, Man of the Mountain. Evie sent me all of Zora Neale Hurston's fiction books that I didn't have already, and we buddy read them together. Zora Neale Hurston takes Moses of the Old Testament and blends it with the Black folklore Moses, and it was just a fantastic story. I cannot wait to read this one again. So I have one more slot here to fill, again with another trilogy, and that would be S.A. Chakraborty's The David Trilogy. It starts with The City of Brass, which these covers are absolutely gorgeous, and then we pick up with The Kingdom of Copper and end with The Empire of Gold, and it is just a wonderful Middle Eastern inspired fantasy trilogy. Although another one that I thought reading the first book I would not like and was going to DNF because there was a moment of romance between two of what I thought were going to be main characters, and I thought, are we going to shift to where this is our main focus? Which actually later in the year ended up reading some fantasy romances that I fell in love with, and so I bet if I reread this trilogy now, I would like it even more now that I've become an actual fan of that subgenre. And for this particular trilogy, I have to thank Angela from Literature Science Alliance and Stephanie from Miss Richards Reads, and also to my friend Penny. The reason why this series ended up on my TBR this year is we had decided we were going to buddy read it together. Now, she did not particularly care for the series and didn't continue after the first book. Every series is not for every reader. That's where the fun comes in for the discussion. And now that my neighbor has decided to trim their bushes, this will be a great time for me to say goodbye and thank you all for watching so you don't have to keep listening to that very annoying sound. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.